Good Thursday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. The trade deadline in the NBA has come and gone, and the Cavs end up standing pat. Plenty of action, though, around the NBA. What does it mean for the Cavs? Sam Amico from hoopswire.com will be along a little later to talk about that. We begin by talking Browns, and we're going to start in the cornerback spot with Greg Newsome. So this is from Next Gen Stats. Target rate in man coverage from Next Gen Stats. You see Greg Newsome, fifth lowest in the NFL. And he says, stay asleep. I had a, quote, down year, though. Then a fan on Twitter asks Newsome, are you open to playing the slot next year, or do you prefer to move outside? The answer, capital N, capital O, does not want to play the slot cornerback position. Let's welcome in Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Quincy, it's not a surprise, but
yeah, I mean, he people are going to have an issue with him just stating it publicly. He doesn't want to do it. I have always been more or less of, I'd rather you not fake it to me. And he don't want to play out. If he don't want to play a slot, there's 100 reasons why he wouldn't want to play a slot. And again, this is part of the, like, when we put more analytics into this, right, and we put more importance on statistical numbers, there's a tendency for some of us to look at this like Madden, right, with Pro Football Focus grades and everything. We're like, oh, we just move this here and we're going to have an 80 overall here. And the reality of football is that it's not a video game. And in video games, you can't measure stuff like, hey, this hurts. And what hurts in football is having to do these run fits as an undersized corner day in and day out, especially for a team that had bad defensive tackle play. So now even more guys are getting to that second level, even more of a responsibility to that nickel DB. And it's not a coincidence when you look at good nickel corners. They are late round draft picks to undrafted guys, because it's kind of a similar philosophy to special teams. Nobody who's good at that does it because that they're good at anything else. They're good at that, right? That's what they can do to stay on a roster. You look at Mike Hilton. I think he was undrafted or 5th round pick out of Cincinnati. I think he was a guy that bounced around a lot of rosters. You look at Troy Hill, who was here a couple years ago. He was an undrafted guy. Like, these guys tend to be undrafted because the variable in playing slot corners that you're gonna be putting your body through a lot, and nobody who's capable of covering on the outside really wants to be on the inside because it's a lot of damage to your body. So it didn't make sense to me that he even agreed to go out back from outside to inside last year. Maybe they caught him being naive as a young player and he agreed to it, but any veteran that had the year that Greg Newsome had would not have agreed to go inside. So I think that's him probably smarting up to, like, I'll make this clear. That's never happening again. Like, that didn't work for the team. It didn't make the team better. It didn't make me better. It didn't help anybody. So it's not happening. It doesn't make sense.
Now, you look at that, though, and there's a surplus at that position. You need a lot of good ones, but in order to make a trade, you need to give something of value to get something of value. And assuming the Browns are going to try to trade for a D tackle or a wide receiver or something to strengthen that roster, cornerback becomes a possibility, I would say. They have strength in numbers.
It's a strong possibility that they trade the cornerback position. I would say this, though. We're putting a lot of focus on Greg Newsome as the person who might get traded. I think it's Martin Emerson that's probably going to be on the block more than likely, because he's the one that really doesn't fit the change in scheme. Like, if there was anybody who benefited from Joe Woods last year, I think it was Martin Emerson, because Martin's issues are he doesn't have the most fluid hips and he doesn't have great long speed. So playing in a lot of quarters and cover 3 really helped them. Now, they're going to play a good amount of cover 3 here, but they're also going to play a good amount of cover 1 in this defense versus what Joe Woods did. And cover 1's not what Martin Emerson's built for. So I think if I'm looking at this just from a scheme fit perspective, nobody's really talking about it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Martin Emerson ends up being the player they ship out. People aren't going to be happy about it, but if you need to trade for something, it depends on what they get back, of course, too, in that value thing. But that's going to be the guy that I would look at saying, hey, if we look at scheme here, Greg Newsome, he can live as a press man corner. Martin Emerson, on the other hand, I think in the NFL, he probably needs help over the top more often than not, and that's just not the kind of defense they're going to be in.
All right, so one of the guys that is playing in the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday, Brandon Graham, defensive end for the Eagles, at the Super Bowl press conference media availabilities, talking about what the Browns are getting with Jim Schwartz, their new defensive coordinator.
Man, they getting him a wizard. I mean, I love Jim. Jim is smart. Don't care about not having friends or not. He just want to do his job and come in and help the team win at all costs. And I think that they got him a good coach, a great coach. Somebody that definitely helped me in my career.
Does he call players out?
Oh yeah, that's what I love about him the most. He holds you accountable. He makes sure that you know what you're doing out there, because he's not just gonna put you out there, and he gonna make sure that you play hard.
He's always had good defensive fronts. I mean, what is it about him that specializes in?
Because they invest in the front seven for sure. I mean, and then the way he plays it, he definitely got some corners already. So I know he's excited about the defense. I mean, they definitely gonna play hard for him, and they gonna know what to do out there.
Quincy, I love it. The wizard. They got a wizard. That's the guy that played for him.
Sounds like he's going to play for him again. Sounds like he knows a lot about the Browns defense for a team he's not on yet, right? Like it sounds like that's going to be like every coach has a guy that they kind of like bring on that's kind of older that they've had before, and they know that could be their locker room guy. You know what I mean? Like the guy that like they could trust their reports of what's going on in the locker room. Yeah, it sounds like Brandon Graham's probably on his way to Cleveland, or that there's some kind of a train of thought where that the Browns are probably going to be a bidder for him in free agency. So yeah, it is interesting to hear that. It's nice to hear that players like Jim Schwartz, and Jim Schwartz has been in the league long enough, and it's not like he has a Greg Williams reputation where that he is hated amongst people in the NFL. This is the completely opposite situation here. So again, and that's good to hear.
All right. Along those lines, CBSSports.com. Top impending free agents that will be playing in the Super Bowl. They ranked them. So the 7th ranked one is the guy we just heard from, Brandon Graham, edge rusher for the Eagles. We'll go through some of the defensive guys, primarily for the Eagles that are out there. Number 21, Robert Quinn, edge rusher for the Eagles. Second ranked one, a defensive tackle, Javon Hargrave. He might be a little bit out of the price range. 10th is Fletcher Cox, and again, he may get paid, a little bit older. Number 17, this guy is intriguing, Ndamukong Suh. He played for the Lions when Jim Schwartz was the head coach there, so that's another one. And then 19, Linval Joseph. So you connect the dots. You mentioned you always look for guys that are familiar with the coordinator or the guy that's going to be running that side of the ball. Jim Schwartz running the defense. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of those linemen end up here in Cleveland playing for him, because you heard what Brandon Graham said about him. That's not something that's going to be what you hear from most guys that play for him. He's well respected.
Yeah, especially the older guys that have played for him before. I think those are the guys you can get a little bit cheaper because they are older and they're not as useful for every team around the league. But for the Browns, who have a win-now window, those players are very useful for them, right? So Brandon Graham comes to mind. Fletcher Cox comes to mind. Javon Hargraves is going to be probably very expensive. I don't know how old he is, but he's very good. And he's probably going to get retained by the Eagles. Ndamukong Suh is an interesting one, because I just think at this point in Ndamukong's career, if you aren't a proven like contender, he probably ain't playing for you, and that means he's probably gonna wait like 10 weeks into the season again to play for somebody. So maybe if the Browns are winning that well and looking that good, he might join us, but I don't think he's coming anywhere for the love of it, like for funds. You know what I mean? Like, yep. He's going there to win. He has a goal. He wants to win a championship, and who knows? He might win a championship this season and decide he calls it quits. So you never know with that too. Surprise! If the Eagles win the Super Bowl, there's always a couple of surprise retirements that pop up because guys want to go out on top. But yeah, I think there's going to be a healthy amount of veteran players that have played with him before and had a good experience with him that are going to want to come back.
Let me ask you this. How many new linemen do you think they bring in? I can't imagine that too many. You know, you got Miles and you probably got Winfrey, Wright, maybe Isaiah Thomas, maybe one or two. You're probably going to have 4 or 5 new defensive linemen.
I would say they're probably going to retain Winfrey. They're probably going to retain Jordan Elliott. They're probably going to retain Taven Bryan. And then an edge, Alex Wright, and then maybe Isaiah Thomas, but he's probably going to be a camp guy. So, you know, you got 4 guys that you know. You're probably going to bring in at least 2 or 3. 4 or 5 would be a lot. But I think at least 3 are probably going to be brought in. Plus, there will be like some guys sprinkled at the bottom of that aren't necessarily locks to make the roster, but are going to be brought in to compete that might have some familiarity with Jim Schwartz.
Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage, and I. Going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, plus some of the most underappreciated and underutilized Browns from this past season. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, what's going on, fellas? A couple days ago, I gave you guys a guy on the defense I wanted you to look at, Jose Ramirez. And then I moved over to offense, and I'm challenging you guys to also look at Nathaniel Dell. He's exactly what we need. He's a speedy receiver. He's also good at kickoffs. And he seems to be able to take a lot of hits. And this guy can burn. I mean, he's really good at switching directions. So let me know what you guys think of him, too. Thanks. Bye.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Quincy, I don't know a lot about Dell. He's from the University of Houston. I know he's 5'8". He's listed at 5'8", 163. That concerns me a little bit, especially on kickoffs. You got to be a little bit I mean, it doesn't matter how fast you are. If you're on kickoffs, you're going to take a beating.
Yeah, some guys can get away with it. Some guys can't. It really depends on like how well you are at avoiding getting hit. Like that's his own skill in itself. The big concern with Nathaniel Dell is that this is a guy who entered college in 2018. Now the COVID stuff does weird things, so where like you assume somebody's like 21, 22 coming out of college. He's going to be 23, turning 24 by the end of October this year. So he will be like 24 in his rookie year. And we're talking about by the time he gets to the end of his contract, he's going to be 28. That's something that the Browns factor in. It's also something you have to factor in, right? Group of 5 school was really good, but 20, like he's older than everybody that's been playing at that level. And it's also a level of competition concern. So, you know, it might be easier for a guy like that to stand out because he's older. But once he gets up to the same level of play, he might not be the same level of player. So that's a concern I would have for him about how real is his college tape versus how much of it was just him being an older, more savvy player. And then like his height listing is all over the place. I see 5'10", 165. I see 5'8". So 5'8's probably coming from the Senior Bowl where they measured him. Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I mean, like if he's there in the 5th to 7th round, you might take a chance on him. But I don't think you're like spending like a 3rd round pick on a 5'8" receiver if you're the Browns, especially since their problem, like I know we're going to focus on speed because we want those explosive plays and Deshaun Watson throws a great deep ball, but they really need drive finishers. They need guys who can get open in the red zone more than anything. And a 5'8" dude's just not going to name me the 5'8" guy who's led the league in touchdowns, and wide receiver. That's never happened because it's really hard to do in the red zone.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do want them to get a guy that you can get the ball out in space and he threatens the defense. And I think that's kind of where the caller was going. But, yeah, the 5'8" concerns me. I'm not going to lie. All right, I know you've dealt with this on Untitled Unfiltered on your show. Underappreciated and underutilized Browns players from a year ago. Who'd you come up with? What do you think along those lines?
Yeah, the 3 players I had were David Njoku, Amari Cooper, and Joe Bitonio. Now, when it comes to underutilized, I don't think Joe Bitonio is underutilized, but underutilized, I would definitely categorize David Njoku and Amari Cooper. Did you know, Dave, that David Njoku is the only tight end in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus, that was ranked in the top 10 in both tight end offense score, tight end receiving, tight end blocking, and was also top 10 in deep 20-plus yard passing as a tight end, while also being in the top 10 in pass blocking snaps, which means he can block. He can do all of those things. He's probably one of the more balanced tight ends in the NFL. So horribly underutilized that we don't go deep to him more often. And I think the same thing with Amari Cooper, but reverse, right? Amari Cooper spent a lot of time playing the X. I think he needs to play more the Z and the Y. And you figure out what you could do with Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think the template for the Browns wide receivers for this offseason should be what the Chiefs do, right? They have Juju Smith-Schuster. That's kind of where I envision Amari Cooper kind of taking advantage of there. Then you have a guy like Marquez Valdez-Scantling that's there for the backside dig routes and those kind of chunk plays, but not necessarily 9 routes and stuff like that. That's Donovan Peoples-Jones. And then you have Travis Kelce in the slot taking care of a lot of different things, or you have Travis Kelce split out wide. And then you have a smattering of fast guys who can catch a deep ball. That's what I would look for, right? I think this offense's evolution needs to find a way to have more drive finishers. And I think David Njoku's your best plan to get a drive finisher. So try to find a way to have David Njoku have 10-plus touchdowns. That's going to be the success for this offense because he's going to be the guy that can finish drives for you because he's the only guy on the roster that's really built for it.
Yeah, that's a matchup problem if you split them out wide. Go ahead and put a corner on them. See how that works out for you. All right. This is from the Bleacher Report. NFL offseason trade ideas to create the next Super Bowl contender. The Texans receive a 2023 third-round pick, 99th overall, 2024 third-round pick. Browns receive wide receiver Brandon Cooks. I think it's a little much. I think you can probably get Cooks for a little bit less than that. I might be wrong in thinking that.
2 third-round picks is a lot.
I know. I agree.
Yeah, I would give up maybe a 5th.
Right. I'm with you.
Yeah.
We're thinking along the same line. I'd like him here, but not for 2/3.
Yeah. I think people, again, like trade value is one of those things. It's weird. And I don't think people understand how discounted good veteran players are in the trade market when it comes to draft picks. There's no, like 2 third-round picks. That's a lot for a quarterback that you might start. You know what I mean?
Right.
Let alone a wide receiver that's going to get some occasional snaps here in Brandon Cooks. So, I think the price is a little bit off on that. Maybe you get him for a 5th. The issue with Brandon Cooks isn't going to be what you have to trade to get him. I don't think that's going to be that much. The issue with Brandon Cooks is how much of the cap is he going to take up, and can you afford that? Because you already have a lot of expensive players on the roster.
Yep. Yeah, and again, they're gonna play with the salary cap as much as they can because they are going to be in win this season mode coming up. All right, Amari Cooper. We've talked about him as a route runner, versatile guy. Let's take a look. Amari Cooper in the ring. Pretty good hands. I can see the hand drill and the agility there. Yeah.
Yeah, look, you don't want it. You don't want them problems. He's still from Florida. You don't want it. You viewer sitting at home with Amari Cooper. You ever run into him?
Yeah.
You don't want it. Those quick hands.
Boom, 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 boom. All right, you see that? You see the rhythm? I tell you what, it looks like he's been in the ring a little bit there, Quincy. Looks like he's
Well, a lot of those guys
yeah.
work on like hand drills just because like they're going to have to get off of guys at the line of scrimmage. That's where he's one of the best at, is being able to get a free release, not being jammed up, and also, getting to where he wants to, getting to his spots. And there's a lot of hand fighting as a corner. You'll see defensive guys do that as well. So, he's just working on what makes him great. And that's one of the things that makes him great is his hands.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we will head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Plus, what's the Browns' biggest need this season? Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. All right, Quincy, I know you've addressed this on your show. Biggest need this offseason for the Browns?
Yeah, I think it's a drive finisher. I think I mentioned it earlier. They got to figure out a plan, because that was the big issue to me, right? When we look at Deshaun Watson's touchdown numbers and why weren't they where we wanted them to be? It wasn't because he wasn't getting to the red zone. He got to the red zone a fair often amount of times once he came back. The issue was they weren't finishing drives, right? They were either settling for field goals, going for it on fourth down, and not being able to convert. They need drive finishers, right? When they get to the 5-yard line, they can do it with Nick Chubb. That's great, but you need to be able to have a drive finisher from the 25 to the 5. Right now, they don't have it. They need to develop that, or they need to figure out a plan for that. Until they do that, the offense will stay in the same place that it is, because they've been trying to cobble together some pieces. We need a drive finisher. We need a guy that when the Browns are in the red zone and it's time to throw a touchdown pass, we all know who's going to get the ball. They all know who's going to get the ball, and it don't matter.
Yeah, I'm with you. There are not a lot of those guys in the NFL, but the good teams do have them. So I agree with you. All right, this is a interesting one. This is a graph that shows you cap space, how much money team can restructure. So, bottom left, you don't want to be there. That's cap hell. That's the Packers, the Panthers, the Niners, the Cardinals. Bottom right, need to worry, but not as much wiggle room. You got the Bengals are in that, the Ravens, the Patriots, Falcons. Up in the upper left where the Browns are. So this is need to make some moves, and you also have the means to restructure contracts. So that's a sign of a forward-thinking front office. And in that area, you got the Browns, you got the Steelers, you got the Rams, you got the Vikings, you got the Jets, you got the Cowboys. So the Browns are actually in a pretty, I don't want to say pretty good spot. They're just fine because of the way their contracts are structured relative to moves they can make. So, again, expect the restructurings to create this cap space. That's going to happen.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they got to do is restructure some guys. Still pick and choose very carefully how much they add guys for and what they add them for in length. But, yeah, it's basically just a game of restructuring at this point.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I think in the draft, we have to get the best defensive tackle in the draft at that point. And the two players that I've seen was Mozzie Smith, who is a great run stopper. I think with him is you don't really see his moves or like different types of technique. It's just size and just strength. And I think on the NFL level, I think he can be really useful in our run game. And I think the same goes with edge rusher Tyree Wilson, who had 41 QB pressures, was not doing any type of move, nothing special, just using his size and his strength to his advantage. Now, I know NFL is different from college, but I think when these two come into the NFL, I think they're going to really have, the guidance from Jim Schwartz to really, get stronger, get faster. And I think if we have those two on our teams, I think we'll have a really great future going forward with our defense.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. I like Smith. I have a feeling, Quincy, that once he gets to the combine and that's like a 365 guy that reportedly has a 40-inch vertical leap. He's going to move up. Yeah, he's going to be moving up the draft board if he does the kind of things I think he is capable of doing.
And it's like in general, along the defensive line, those aren't guys you draft in day one, and then they start day one and they become impact players day one. It takes a while for those guys to develop into themselves. Every once in a while, you'll get somebody who's pretty pro ready, but a lot of these guys are very raw coming out of college. Like the guy said, Mozzie Smith and Tyree Wilson, like they're able to win off of just traits in college, right? In the NFL, everybody got traits. So now you got to learn how to win off skill. And it takes a while to develop skill. And it also takes a while to just develop the strength necessary for you to be strong in the NFL. I think Myles Garrett kind of like ruined how we think of this, because Myles Garrett came in, first play was a sack, and he was great from day one. But Myles Garrett went number one overall in the draft with Pat Mahomes for a reason. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just that level of talent. And it said something that we still don't even talk about, the fact that he went number one in the draft with Pat Mahomes, and nobody has any regrets about that. But, yeah, it's going to be tough to fill those positions in the draft. I think you're going to have to do that with what you have on the roster and in free agency more so than the draft. But you do need to find some long-term solutions, though.
Right. You have to draft them, but you need guys that can come in and be productive this year. Just look at the run game last year. This from Dogs by Nature, and this one's really interesting. Jacob Phillips, stay or go. For the stay portion, they say, unfortunately, Browns will have to play the long game with Phillips this upcoming season. Ceiling is too high for him to let him walk out the door for nothing, but he's yet to play a full NFL season. 88 combined tackles, 57 solo, 5 sacks in just 20 games. Go. Anthony Walker got hurt in Week 3 against Pittsburgh. Significant setback for the defense. This loss made all the worse because his replacement, Phillips, was woefully underprepared for the task. In fact, worst period of time for the Cleveland's run defense in 2022 was when Phillips was leading the unit on the field. And that's a guy, he has been banged up every year, was taken, I think it was in the 3rd round, and that's been a guy that, he hasn't performed like you want a 3rd-round pick to perform.
Yeah. I mean, he's been able to start here and there. I think this is a pretty obvious, you just got to let it go after this point. How many times have we replaced him with somebody that guy's been better than him? I think the temptation there is too great to put him in. And when he's in, the defense usually isn't any better. So I would go with him having to go.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break. 5 Browns who could be gone after 2023 if they don't step it up. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. All right, this is from Fansided. 5 Browns who could be gone after the 2023 season if they do not step up this upcoming season. Grant Delpit, safety. Second one, wide receiver Anthony Schwartz, former third-round pick. Backup tight end, Harrison Bryant. So tight end number 2, Harrison Bryant. Next one up is Nick Harris, center who apparently had won the starting job, got hurt first play of the preseason, so he's going to be coming off an injury. And then Jedrick Wills, left tackle, and again, it'll be interesting to see if in fact the Browns pick up that 5th-year option before this season gets going, which means he would not be gone after this year. Quincy, when you let's start with Wills. When you look at that, people are comparing him to what the 10th pick overall has been, but you're paying your guards both over $10 million. You extended Conklin, and he's paying about $14 million. That's $14.75 is what the 5th-year option would be for Jedrick Wills.
Yeah, it's not bad for a tackle. I mean, like this, it was around the same price for Jonah Williams last year, and I think Jonah Williams and Jed Wills pretty similar a level of player there, even though I think Jed's a little bit better than Jonah. But yeah, I mean, like that's about the right amount for Jed Wills is where that fifth-year option is going to be. So I would expect that they pick it up. Also, just because they really don't have a left tackle solution there to replace Jed Wills with, right? Like, who are you going to put in if you let him walk in free agency next year? Or let's say Jed Wills has a great year next year. What are you going to do then? You going to let a good left tackle go for nothing? Like, at that point, like, you know, so I think a lot of the people's, like, desire to cut Jed Wills is kind of short-sighted, and we're not really thinking it through because he does make people mad because he stops after he blocks sometimes. But, you know, if Jed has a good year next year and you have the fifth-year option, even if you don't want to keep him, you can trade him for a reasonable return there, because it's not like that fifth-year option is super expensive for anybody to take on. It's not like a Baker Mayfield situation. Or you can keep him for $14 million. And if he's not great this year, or if he's what he's been, he's going to be worth that contract, because $14 million is about the level of play you've gotten from him.
You look at the first guy we talked about, Grant Delpit. I'm curious to see how he plays in Jim Schwartz's defense. This could be made for him because they can move him up near the line of scrimmage and do some things that play to his strengths.
We'll see a lot about how they feel about Grant Delpit with the decision that's made with John Johnson. You know, if they really trust Grant Delpit, they'll probably get off of John Johnson. But if they don't trust that he's going to be consistent, then John Johnson's probably going to stay and get moved to a more similar role to what Grant was playing last year. And then they'll probably flip Grant to more of a true free safety role or a rotational guy, or he kind of use a mesh of safeties to kind of fill in for the slot corner situation there. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see with Grant, because Grant's had a couple great finishes to the last 2 years, and then he's kind of started off the season not as great as he left off. Then there's other guys on this list. Anthony Schwartz, I mean, it's obvious there. I don't even know if he gets 2023, to be honest with you. Harrison Bryant is another one who he might just get till camp. And then Nick Harris, I mean, he's at the end of his contract. And I don't even know if that's the guy they're going to be leaning on to be the center, because they might just bring in somebody to be an insurance policy, much like Ethan Posick. And if Ethan Posick can take the job, I mean, not Ethan Posick, but the next guy can take the job, they'll just go with that.
All right.
Or a rookie.
Yeah, and again, those are all things that they'll sort out in camp as they move through it. 3 positions the Browns must draft in 2023. This according to Dog Pound Daily. Number 3, running back. It's unlikely they will no longer. It's likely they will no longer have Kareem Hunt on the roster. Dearness Johnson likely not back as well. So it's Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford. So they're going to have to look at taking a running back later rounds in the draft. Offensive line. Barry won't be looking to add a starter in this year's draft, but he will be looking for a guy like James Hudson, be a solid backup, and number 1 defensive tackle. So you got Jordan Elliott, Taven Bryant, Tommy Togiai, Perry, and Winfrey. They're all inconsistent. So, again, yeah, eventually you're going to have to not pay your offensive linemen all, $10 million or more, and you're likely going to have 4 of the 5 that are above that $10 million with Bitonio Teller. If you pick up that 5th-year option on Wills and Jack Conklin.
Yeah. Offensive line is probably going to be where a lot of people are going to be surprised when they look at this draft. I think running back's another one where it's like, I don't think they're drafting for depth. They're drafting for a different position there at running back, which is they need more of a receiving threat there, right? So that's going to be interesting to see how they attack that. And defensive tackle, yeah, you need some long-term solutions. Now, they might feel like they could develop Perrion Winfrey and Jordan Elliott into long-term solutions. I would like to add one more name to that list. I don't need to see them draft like 8 defensive tackles, but like 1. I think they need at least 1 there.
Yeah. No, I you got to find, and I want to see them change what they're looking for in a defensive tackle, because hadn't worked. whatever traits you're looking for, tear them up and go back and let's see if Jim Schwartz can have some input on that. This is from BrownsNation.com. 2 shocking trades the Browns could make this offseason. They begin with the aforementioned Jedrick Wills. 3 seasons with Bill Callahan, couldn't break Wills out of his knack for giving up on plays. Still wins at the 2.5-second mark, enough for Barry to flip him for a mid-round pick before April. And I don't know if you'd flip a former 10th overall pick for a mid-round pick, but and then they say Amari Cooper. Barry Barry made the deal last season, gave up a 5th-round pick. Imagine if he got a 2nd-round pick for the same receiver this year. Just as abilities start to fade, if Watson talks Barry into pursuing former teammate DeAndre Hopkins, it is probably at the expense of Cooper. Yeah, that sounds like moving a lot of chess pieces around that don't need to be moved. But if you can't trade Cooper before you go out and get his replacement, because then if you don't have him, you don't have a receiving core.
Yeah, and, the Browns aren't, quite frankly, at the point where they're going to trade for draft assets. They're not flipping starting players for draft assets. They are not rebuilding anymore. Like, for better or worse, they are trying to make the playoffs this year. And not just trying to make the playoffs, they're trying to make a run this year. So the idea that we're just going to be like, hey, our left tackle, our starting left tackle, let's trade him for a mid-round pick maybe, is ridiculous. Like, it would be ridiculous. And honestly, if you want to trade Jed Wills, you should want him to get the 5th-year extension, because that's the only way you're going to be able to trade him, is if you give him a 5th-year extension. He plays well in the 4th year of that extension. Then in the offseason, you could trade him. But again, why would you trade somebody who's good? Like that, it doesn't make sense to create a hole on your roster for a 3rd-round pick at best. Yeah. Like, that's ridiculous. And then Amari Cooper, trading him, you're not going to get a 2nd-round pick. You really aren't, because he was good the year that the Cowboys traded him, and he only got a 5th-round pick for him, right? So you're not. Why make the mistake? We just saw the Cowboys make this mistake, and all year we laughed at the Cowboys. You traded Amari Cooper to the Browns for 5th-round pick. That was dumb. And now we're like, hey, we should do what the Cowboys did. That's dope. That's dope. We should make that same exact mistake, not just with wide receiver, but with left tackle. Let's do both of that. Let's just trade away our starters here, and then get mad at Deshaun Watson if he doesn't find success with 2 less starters. And then he's going to want to trade out, because you know what the team that had him before that lost him did? This is what they did. They traded his starters for draft picks, and then they lost Deshaun Watson. So if you're trying to get Deshaun Watson to request a trade, perfect stuff to suggest. If you're trying to make the team better, don't think that's going to be helpful.
Quincy Carrier, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Quincy Carrier, make sure you check him out. Untitled, unfiltered Browns coverage, always really good stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Trade deadline came and went. Cavs stood pat. Sam Amico to talk about it straight ahead on Sports4CLE.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Little over an hour and a half ago, 3 o'clock Eastern Time, an NBA trade deadline came and went, and the Cavaliers stood pat. Let's welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Sam, let's see, Kevin Durant traded, Kyrie Irving traded. How does the Durant trade in particular kind of affect the Cavs?
Well, I think it impacts the entire Eastern Conference, but when you're the Cavs, you're talking about a team that, you know, up until this point, you've kind of been battling for that 4th spot in the Eastern Conference. Theoretically, you know, you would assume that the Nets are probably going to take a little bit of a tumble now that they don't have Durant, Kyrie Irving. It seemed like about 2 weeks ago even, the Nets had been playing incredibly well, almost looking like the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. For a while there, and then all of a sudden Kyrie Irving demands a trade. The Nets accommodate him, and that just makes things, you know, and then of course the Durant deal is the bigger deal when it comes to the Cavaliers, because now all of a sudden, you know, you're in that conversation for 3rd and 4th spot in the Eastern Conference, and really, you know, should be able to get home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. So, you know, a lot of teams are in the East are feeling a lot better now that Durant has moved to the West, and certainly the Cavs are among them.
Yeah, without question. So the question becomes, why did the Cavs not make a deal? Kobe Altman met with the media. These were some of his comments. Just didn't think anything really moved the needle for us. And Altman also responding to why they stood pat was that it's the beginning of what is a long runway to mature, develop, and gain more experience. So they're focused on kind of this core and letting them develop, letting them figure it out. Sam, we've talked about it, that, it wouldn't be a surprise, and I get it. I get the thinking without question.
That's just it. There was just nothing that Kobe Altman said, nothing that moved the needle. So why bother? You don't want to just make a trade for the sake of making one. We heard Karis LeVert, his name thrown around a lot, but I mean, you're talking about a guy who plays 30 minutes a night, so are you going to find somebody else who could come in and play 30 minutes a night for you? The answer was no. The Cavs did their due diligence, just as they should, but again, we have to remember that this is a team that made a huge trade at the beginning of the season by landing Donovan Mitchell. And still, as well as they played recently, that takes some time to adjust when you're adding a star player. So, with about 30 games left, are you going to go out and add another guy and adjust to him all over again? Say it's somebody who replaces LeVert, then you got to, throw in another guy who's playing 25, 30 minutes a night. I just think that, the process, sure, you do it if, you're talking about a guy who's going to move the needle and raise you up a couple levels, but those players weren't available for what the Cavs had to offer. So it almost seemed like, we're just making a trade to make one, when in reality, they didn't need to do that. They can go forward with the core as is and then tinker in the offseason as they see fit.
Yeah, and again, you kind of touched on it. They're young, and you're trying to assimilate an all-star into it. So let them figure it out and see what it looks like on the court. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, just a quick question on the Cavs. What's going on with Kevin Love, man? He's not even in the rotation no more. He hasn't played in 7 games? Is he hurt? Is he going through some things, or is he falling out of favor? Are they just going young? What's going on with Kevin Love? Go Cavs. Good 4-game winning streak going. Let's keep it up. Go Cavs.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Sam, I'll defer to you on this one. What is up with Kevin Love?
Good question. This happens throughout the course of the NBA history. Is a veteran player will fall out of the rotation sometimes when the team decides to go a little bit younger. With Dean Wade having come back, Isaac Okoro, even though he's obviously 6 inches shorter than Love, really those are the guys who are kind of eating up his minutes, playing well for the most part. But, when Dean Wade came back, that really kind of, and Kevin Love suffered an injury at the same time, then Wade, got into the rotation. Love fell out. There's just not enough minutes for everybody right now. That's just the way it goes in the NBA. Somebody's going to have to sit, and sometimes somebody pretty decent. But, and look, there's a chance that Kevin Love could be back in the rotation by the time the playoffs get here. Obviously, his veteran leadership is needed in the locker room. He and JB Bickerstaff are tight. So this is not a big deal when it comes to Love. It's just a matter of the numbers. It's a numbers game so often when it comes to the NBA. And if you're playing 9 guys, sometimes an okay, decent player is going to fall out of the rotation. And right now, Kevin Love is just the odd man out. It's not really because of anything he's done or, any kind of injuries that maybe lingering a little bit, but not enough to keep him off the floor. It's just, this is just the way it goes sometimes in the NBA. Sometimes guys who have contributed for a long time are left on the bench, and injuries happen, and his opportunity will certainly come again at some point, I would think.
All right, along those lines, we take a look at this. So Altman also said no discussions about a buyout with Kevin Love. Cavs know he wants to play, and he may get another chance, something that, you were alluding to. There was questions, are they going to buy Kevin Love out? That's not going to be the case, at least according to Kobe Altman.
Usually it's only bad teams that buy out, veteran players and veteran contracts. There's no point in the Cavs buying him out. If you're the Cavs, you have to look at how does this best serve us right now. Well, that doesn't serve the Cavs at all. Maybe it would give Kevin Love an opportunity to go join, either Kyrie with the Mavericks or LeBron with the Lakers or something along those lines. But first of all, Kevin Love is not expressing a desire for a buyout. And the Cavs, just what Kobe Altman said, those opportunities could come along at some point. There are always injuries. There are always guys who fall out of the rotation because they're playing inconsistent. And that's where Love, steps back in. So you're paying him for the rest of the season. There's really no reason to buy him out because you're not looking to bring in more free agents or more young guys to develop them, for next season, right? The Cavs want to win as much as they can now, get into the playoffs, and Kevin Love will help them do that.
Yeah, and again, he might have something. You never know when you get a guy that gets hot during a playoff series. He's the type of veteran that you want in a series because he's been there, he's done that. Along those lines, Karis LeVert, a guy whose name was bantied about in trade talks, Altman said there's a lot of interest in keeping Karis LeVert with the Cavs beyond this season. Value him as a playmaker, spot starter, and they can see him having a major impact in the playoffs. And I get the thinking, if Garland or Donovan Mitchell are out, who's going to create better than LeVert?
Yeah,
LeVert's the next best guy.
That's exactly it. And he does, he's a veteran guy. He's a team guy. He's kept a positive attitude. He's a guy who can break you down occasionally, as we saw, very early in the season when he had 41 points against the Celtics. He's been very inconsistent, but that's okay if you're coming off the bench, and that's what he's doing right now. So, yes, the Cavs would like to see more consistency out of him. There was some interest from opposing teams ahead of the trade deadline, but again, nothing that's really going to move the needle or would have raised the Cavs' playoff expectations. Would have been just making a deal to make a deal. So, this is LeVert's time to shine right now. This is he's going to be a free agent at the end of the season. This is his chance to kind of play and get a bigger contract and make a difference. And of course, there's going to be some interest. Look, I know fans expect everybody to be an all-star, but you might have 2 or 3 stars if you're lucky. The reality is that the majority of your players are going to be role players, and how well do they fit around the team stars? So, the Cavs still are deciding that on LeVert, and LeVert's still getting comfortable. So, it remains to be seen what his future is in Cleveland, but these next 30 games in the playoffs will help determine that.
Sam Amico and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, Cavs are playing well, 4-game winning streak. We'll hear from JB Bickerstaff and take a look at a couple of things that have led to this good play. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Cavs with Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. JB Bickerstaff talking about the key team's aggressiveness and what he's seen during this 4-game winning streak.
We've been talking about it as a group. The guys recognize it. It's been the difference, and it's night and day to see it. We understand, and our guys are, understanding like what it takes to really be a good team, and where we're different. And, our defense is what makes us different. So if we're willing to commit ourselves on that end of the floor like we have, we've turned it up even, more. And if we continue to do that, with the offensive weapons we have, we're going to be a hard out. And I think the guys feel that. But they're embracing like that. That's what winning looks like, and they've embraced it.
Have you seen something other than that aggressiveness change since that loss to Miami, or is it mainly that?
No, it's every possession is a purposeful possession, and understanding like, you don't play with the emotional roller coaster, right? The teams that win are the teams that are the most steady and the most consistent. You want to play to your standard and play to what your level you're capable of, but can you get there and stay there? And I think that's what our guys are figuring out is, there's an intensity that you have to play with that keeps you here, and understanding that, every game is an important game, breaking it down every quarter by quarter, like all the way down to the small possessions. I think our guys have recognized that and understand that's how it impacts winning.
Sam, as I listen to that, that's what all young teams have to figure out in the NBA. And once they do, they end up winning playoff series.
Amongst all the trade deadline buzz, we kind of lost, sight of the fact that they've won 4 straight. They've been playing very well, and it has been defense. Coach Bickerstaff knows what he's talking about. This is a team that always fares well the better they are defensively. As many weapons as they have on offense, it really does boil down to what they're doing on defense and giving complete effort on that end of the floor. Every coach at every level will tell you, if you got to take a rest, you got to rest while you're out on the court. Do it on offense. Don't do it on defense. So, as a young team, they're definitely learning that. They're definitely coming through, have been proving that regularly over the course of the last couple of weeks. So this is a good sign, because this is the type of basketball that's going to win in the playoffs. And the fact that these, the young core is kind of grasping that is really a positive sign. And, that's what I always tell everybody about the trade deadline. This is a team that's finally getting it, so they didn't get any worse. Some teams get worse at the trade deadline. The Cavs did not. They stayed the course and should continue to improve as they approach the playoffs.
All right, so we mentioned a 4-game winning streak. Now, take a look. This is from Cavs Notes. They've won 4 straight, all by 15 points or more, and including that last win against the Pistons, that is their 25th win by at least 10 points. That is best in the NBA. And Sam, you look at 85, 91, 103, even 113 against Memphis. It goes back to that defense. That defense is the reason that they have led the NBA with most double-figure wins.
Yeah, one of those, of course, came without Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. So, obviously against a struggling Detroit team, but the bottom line is you went out and you took care of business, and they have to continue to do that against the inferior competition, which they kind of hadn't been doing kind of leading up to this last week. They've kind of been playing to the level of their competition, and sometimes it comes back to bite you. So really kind of getting it together at the best possible time. You got a break coming up here with the All-Star break. You get a week off for most of the guys other than Donovan Mitchell. So, make the most of it, go all out. And that seems to be the message right now. And then you get a break and come back, pick up where you left off in terms of defending and really getting after it and putting away these inferior opponents. So, their point differential is a good sign that this winning streak isn't just, they're eking out victories. It's been really convincing and really a bright sign of the future.
All right, before I let you go, so in the East, you got Celtics, you got the Bucks, you got the 76ers. What do the Cavs need from the group that they have here to be kind of right in that mix?
Again, it goes back to defense. If you defend those teams well and are pesky and play with fire and passion, that's gonna influence games. We've seen it earlier this year with the Cavs when they played some of those teams, when they played the Celtics, and beat them in Boston in that overtime game, fantastic game. Beat them in Cleveland as well. And a lot of that was, we're just going to out-passion you and outwork you because the Cavs have the talent. They just don't have the experience of a Boston or a Milwaukee or the 76ers. But sometimes you can get back, get past those teams, even in a 7-game series, on pure determination. And especially at the defensive end, the Cavs have the talent. I mean, you're talking Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, which disrupt a lot of things for opponents, young and old, near the basket. You have Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell constantly making you work at the defensive end with their capabilities, scoring capabilities. And now you have Isaac Okoro, who has come along nicely. We're just talking about the starting five. Isaac Okoro has come along nicely, become more of an offensive weapon, and really, I would say, has improved defensively this year as well. So they have all the tools. They just don't have the experience of these other teams yet. But we've seen it before. Look, the Atlanta Hawks went to the Eastern Conference Finals, a young team a couple years ago. There's no reason that the Cavs can't do something similar and go on the same kind of run. So there's a lot to be excited about heading into this, I don't want to say second half, but these last 30 games before the playoffs.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun to watch and see what this young team can do. Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. As always, great stuff. Appreciate you. Join us on NBA Trade Deadline Day. Thanks very much, Sam.
All right, Dave, thanks for having me. I think I'll go take a nap.
All right, Sam Amico. Check him out, hoopswire.com. See everything that happened at that NBA trade deadline. Always great stuff. Not only with Cavs, but with the NBA as a whole. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.